Welcome to TED Talks.
I'm Missy.
And I'm Mariah. I'm a certified nurse midwife, and I'm a mom of 3 children, 7 and younger.
I'm a mom of 5, pregnant with my 6th. And we came together because we're women, just like you, and we saw a need. So we created a platform and a community for women called Beyond the Red Tent.
Right.
And we're taking it one step further.
To TED Talks. So TED Talks is a space where you can come and learn from vetted experts, real women that are willing to share their courageous stories about topics of holistic women's health.
And so you're here. We understand life is full. You're a busy woman. So this is only going to be about 30 minutes of a beautiful talk with either an expert or a real woman like yourself. So grab a cup of tea, sit back, and enjoy. Hello, beautiful Beyond the Red Tent community. I'm Missy, and I'm here with Mariah and with Eva Clay. And we are so excited for this conversation. We all like to talk about sex and sexuality. And Eva is, to say you're an expert is an understatement. You have 23 years of experience. Can you tell us about this breadth of work that you've been doing around sex and sexuality?
Thank you. You're so kind. I've been so blessed in my life to know really from a very young age what I wanted to do. So I've been able to pursue that path fully. So I have been an advocate for women's sexual wellness really my whole adult life. I've worked in places such as Planned Parenthood. I've run a battered women's shelter. I ran a rape treatment clinic, and really in the scope of being a clinical psychotherapist and a sexologist. And so I really come from the trenches of advocating for women's sexual health. And about 4 years ago, I made the leap into being a full-time entrepreneur as a sex educator, a sexologist, and sex coach. So I love to help women, men, and couples to have fulfilling, healthy, vital, and passionate love lives.
It's such an important part of our life, and it also is something that often gets twisted and has such a stigma around it, especially as a woman having a healthy, if you have a healthy libido, you get classified one way, and if you don't, you get classified another way. And so today you're going to give us some tips really to help women of all ages, 18 over and over, because this is going to be a real conversation. So it may get a little bit graphic, just a warning here before we get started. And, for me, libido is something that has really ebbed and flowed my whole life. And now at 42, I'm in a different phase, and I'm just excited to hear what you have to say. I personally want to hear the tips.
Great. Awesome. The tips that I'm about to give you really are applicable to women at all stages. And I am 49 myself, so I specialize in working with women over 40 because I think they really do have a special set of needs. However, much of what I'm going to share with you is great to hear if you're a younger woman so that you can begin to install some of this mindset and this education early on. And once you go into peri-menopause or become a mother in midlife, you'll be ready. And you'll have a lot more juice and power sexually.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
I used that word. This is going to be juicy.
Yeah, let's hope.
I'm ready for some juicy.
I'll bring it. Okay. So to have a healthy libido and a healthy sexual expression, as I call it, the first tip, the first pillar really to this is your mindset. And so often women come to me and they want more libido where they're feeling low in their sexual desire. And the first thing they do is they check their hormones. They get their hormones checked, and which is a really great idea and is very important. And I think we need to talk about hormones anytime we talk about sex, your hormonal functioning. But a lot of what's left out is actually the sexual psychology. And the majority of the women who come back to me who have had their hormones checked and are under the care of a homeopath or naturopath or doctor say that it doesn't remediate the actual problem. And so in a woman's sexual arousal system, our psyche is so connected to our sex. The two are really inextricable. And so we have to look at what is our programming. What did our mother teach us about sex? What did our family, our culture, our society teach us about sex? And Missy, I love when you alluded to this early on, that if you love sex, you're a slut. If you don't love sex, then that's a problem. You're frigid, or it's like, there's no way for us to win at this in the current cultural mindset that we're in. And so to look at like how that early programming got wired into the way that you respond to sex, in the way that you initiate it, in the way you experience pleasure in your body, and how much permission do you really have to be with what is, to accept yourself fully as a sexual being. And the big key here is curiosity. Now, in all of my programs, I install this philosophy, and it's called make nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. Make nothing wrong. So if you're feeling sexually shut down, if you're feeling sexually on fire, whatever that is, can you adopt a spirit of curiosity to begin peeling back the layers and begin to track and pay great loving attention to what it is that turns you on, what turns you off, what shuts you down, what brings you forward, and attend to it with great love.
I have so many questions right now.
I know.
I know we're going through these tips, but I'm wondering, is part of it habit? You know, that we get, maybe you go through, like, okay, I'm just going to use myself as an example, going through a period where I was breastfeeding, and, you know, hormonally, and maybe I was touched out too, but I just was not myself in terms of my libido. And then you get out, it's almost like you're out of the habit of having sex often. Does that play a role? I mean, and how do we get back into it? Are there tips for getting back into it? Like you said, how do we turn ourselves on again?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And this will, again, tie into key number one, which is about mindset. This is a very broad key. And the mindset that's important to look at is that if you're living in the West, probably and unless you're sexually awakened, you are probably having sex within a patriarchal frame. So what that means is that there's a huge mythology that women should have and experience and want sex like men do. But in reality, we don't. We know that on some level. We know that we're different creatures. But most women, again, unless they've become educated and are awakened about sex, don't have the appropriate expectation of their bodies. So, you know, one of my mentors, Esther Perel, always says, there's no such thing as a lack of desire. There's only a lack of imagination. And it's not that women don't want sex. It's that they don't want the sex that they believe is available to them.
Okay, I've got to put this in there because in my mind, I'm thinking as a clinician, you know, there's me saying, well, there's times I just want sex. There's times I just want an orgasm. There's times really what I'm looking for is intimacy and connection and all of that. And I have to acknowledge there's the huge population of women that are on antidepressants, and that affects libido hugely. There's the huge population of women on oral contraception and hormonal contraception, and that affects libido from a physiological standpoint. Plus, then you've got the breastfeeding mamas and the pregnant mamas, although I don't know about you, when I was pregnant, I was the most juicy. And then you've got the peri-menopause and the menopause where hormones are just changing. And so yes, I hear what you're saying. And what about just basic physiology? Can that just be superseded, or what do you say to those women?
I say that lovemaking changes. And again, when we talk about libido shutting down, libido for what? You know, I think you nailed it on the head here. It's like sometimes you want intimacy. Sometimes you want a hard, good, vigorous lovemaking. And what women tend to miss, or what they think is defective or broken about them, is that they don't want sex in the way they used to want sex. And so maybe when you're breastfeeding, the lovemaking comes a little differently. And what's important to know is that women are responsive in their arousal. So there's this mythology that desire comes first and then arousal comes second. When in reality for women, it's the reverse. So we need to be aroused first in order to feel desire for sex. Does that make sense? We need to be aroused.
I feel like every man needs to hear what you just said.
I know, yes.
Every husband needs to hear what you just said.
That's why I do what I do, is because this needs to get out. Our sexual arousal system is responsive. It's not spontaneous. So if you're breastfeeding or you're perimenopausal or you're on antidepressants and now suddenly there's a different texture in your sexuality, there's just a different kind of character, feeling about it, then it's important to know that you can shift the way that you experience sex, that you can ask for something different, that you can have a different expectation from your body. And in order for most women to even want sex, we have a certain set of like prerequisites to get us even in that field of possibility. So that might, for you, look like having the dishes done, having a foot massage, making sure the kids are fed and dinner is put away. And so we all have this like this set of conditions or context, as we call it. And if your husband, your partner is smart or educated, if he's not, send him to me. He will have a map of how to put you in a mode of receptivity so that your body can respond to his offering.
Mm. That's
Okay, I have to ask another question. I read a statistic recently that said less than 20% of women orgasm from penetration alone. And I think there's this real misnomer around, oh, you have sex. If you're having sex with a male, he puts it in you. I mean, this is really, really graphic. And then you just get these words. And I don't know about you, but it doesn't work that way with my physiology. And I think especially younger women, like, they need to know that up front.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. Yes, I can't tell you how many women come to me and they say, I think I'm broken. Something's wrong with me because I don't have orgasms from sex. And I love to share these statistics. I think that 20% is even too high. I think it's less than 20% of women have orgasm from penetration alone. And so, there's a new theory that is circulating right now that all orgasms are clitoral orgasms. That the clitoris, frames the introitus and actually rides around the outer labia of the vulva. And so the penetration is creating stimulation on the clitoris, and that's what's creating the orgasm. So I digress a little bit, but all to say that every woman experiences pleasure and orgasm in her own unique way. And all ways are beautiful. And this is what leads us back to key number 1 is mindset and having a spirit of curiosity about like, oh, look at my body. This is interesting. Well, let's try this. Let's try that. And let me try to stimulate myself in a new and interesting way and just see what happens. Instead of having this unrealistic expectation that your body should respond 1, like a man's, or 2, like a porn star's.
Yeah. It's so funny. My husband and I went through a phase where we were watching Outlander.
Oh, I love that show.
But every sex scene, I'm like, she's having an orgasm. No, it doesn't happen like that. Like, it doesn't happen just through penetration like that. Like, it would take a lot longer. This is not accurate. And you think, if a woman doesn't know her own body or doesn't know that, she might think she's broken, like you said. Or the man might think she's broken if he doesn't have that information.
Yes, and this explains the phenomenon of faking orgasms. If you're watching this, just acknowledge that pretty much every woman I've ever known and ever worked with has faked orgasms.
I did.
Absolutely.
I haven't with my husband.
Yeah,
But when I was younger, I did. It's like that feeling of, I'm kind of bored and I want him to feel as though he's accomplished.
And I just want to be
I'm ready for your second tip. What's number 2?
Second tip.
Okay, great. There's so much with mindset. So number 2 is about communication. And in a woman's body, it's important to understand in her sexual arousal system that your withholds, what you are not saying to your partner, is going to block up your nervous system. It's going to block up your sexual arousal system because it creates tension in the body. So whenever we're holding something in, our body actually holds it in. And so this constriction and this contraction in the body will prevent you from, number one, enjoying sex. And then if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to want it again. You know, why would a woman want sex when the sex she's having is really not that enjoyable to begin with? So we could say like the biggest key to wanting sex is to have good sex at all. Why would you want to eat a food that you don't enjoy the taste of? And then question, why don't I want to eat chopped liver? I don't understand what's wrong with me. Because it doesn't taste good, you know? So once you even have a couple of experiences of really good sex, meaning sex that nourishes you, sex that makes you feel alive and loved and intimate and connected and deep, then your dopamine circuits are going to light up and say, sex is good, more of that, please. Okay, so yeah.
When you say communication, you mean communication in general, not just communication around sex. Is that?
So both, on both levels. So I'm trying to go through this as quickly as I can. There's so much I want to share. And like, I know like we'll get to more of it in the future, but just to kind of give you what I can now. So communication in general. So if you're mad at your partner because he didn't come home on time last night for dinner, let's say, and then you go to make love the next day and that emotion is still stuck in your body, it's going to show up in your sexual arousal system. That's just the way that it works with women. So everything that we've not spoken gets stored literally in the pelvic bowl.
I have to say something.
Do it.
I'm a midwife. And it's so interesting. I think of communication as this area, right? The constriction here. If you're not talking, you're tight here. You're not letting the energy flow. And as a midwife supporting women in labor, so much of it is around relaxing here and opening up and letting the sound out. And what we know is that when this is relaxed and open, the uterus relaxes and opens, and so does the cervix. And I find the same thing around orgasm and making love. And so that communication piece really makes sense to me because it's going to relax and open both parts. My left hand is down touching my yoni. You can't see that. But it really makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking your truth. And then the corollary to the communication is sexual communication. You know, are you talking to your partner about sex? If you're in peri-menopause or you're menopausal, you know, certainly things are changing. Have you educated your partner about those changes in your body? Have you asked him or her for something different than you used to have in a way that is not making them wrong? Mm-hmm. So we can communicate, but it also needs to be skillful communication. While you're making love, are you asking your partner in a sexy, loving, inviting way for what it is that you want? Look, I just changed the tone of my voice a little bit because this is how I coach women to say it. So like, let me give you a quick example here because it's a mistake a lot of women make. If this is you, you know, let us know if you're brave enough to enter in the comments or the chat here. Let us know if you've ever done this before. The partner you're making love with does something to your body and it doesn't feel good, like it hurts or it's just is like not working for you. And then we get frustrated. We're like, stop it. No. Like, can you not do that? And of course, it's because our autonomic nervous system is flinching against that experience. So then what registers in your partner's mind is like, I did something wrong. I'm inadequate. She's not happy. I'm not pleasing her. So I always train women to communicate calmly and respectfully and lovingly and supportively, like, you know what I would love? I love it when you go slow. That turns me on so much.
Mm. You know, I have to acknowledge once again, as the healthcare provider here, those women that are going through perimenopause and menopause that are starting to have the vaginal atrophy, the thinning, little bit of bleeding, and sometimes pain. And I've had women say, that flinching of ow, then their sexual partners start feeling nervous around making love because they're afraid that they're going to hurt their partner. And so I can really see, I just want to specifically highlight that group of women, or those that are younger and maybe just starting to have sex at the beginning, and it's new and there's new sensations, and one position, that kind of hurts your cervix or your uterus, or it's tight at the opening. That's a really significant piece for those age ranges.
Yeah, for sure. And so what I don't want you to ever do is lay back and take it, right, or endure. So in my world, there is no enduring sex. Mm-hmm. So it might be a conversation outside of the bedroom where you sit your partner down and you say, hey, look, like, this is creating some pain for me. Let's be creative and think of what we can do. And I love making love with you. I'm so in love with you. And really, bring the mindset in, a sex positive mindset of like, let's be curious about my body. Right now it's changing. It's going through these transitions. And it just means that the way we make love might be different, and it could be even better than ever. Like sometimes, women who are perimenopausal, menopausal, what opens up to them is this whole new way of making love. One of the things I love personally, I'm 49 and perimenopausal, is when I do bleed, I love it when I bleed and my partner wants to make love. Because there's certain things I just don't feel like doing. Like I might not want penetration when I'm bleeding. But what does that open up? Oh my gosh, there's like all these other possibilities of enjoying each other's body that might not include penetration. So it brings in more creativity. And that can be a real gift. I work with many women who are menopausal and they're in their 50s and 60s and having the best sex of their life because finally they have the courage to ask for what they really want. And the masculine patriarchal mode of penetration is off the table.
Right.
Okay, I'm aware of time. So I know we've gone through number 2 and there's 5 total. We're going to offer 3. And then if you want the rest, we'll give you the link to get there. And I know you've got the Aphrodite's program. And I found this really fun song. I just had to play really quick because
I love it.
blame it on the juice. Okay, so I'm hoping that one of these pointers is going to be around just the juiciness. Like I feel like we've talked about when we're in it, but what about, I'm hoping number 3 or number 4, number 5 is also going to be around creating the desire. What about those women that just really have lost their interest or desire at all?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's one of your pointers?
It is. And I'll bump it up to number 3 just for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And this is something we go really deep into in Aphrodite's Circle. So I just want to, give this a mention that your Red Tent community does get a wonderful discount. Today is the last day to join in the program. And I know that those discount codes, Red Tent 1 and Red Tent 2, will be entered in the comments below. I invite you to come over and check out aphroditescircle.com. So this is what we go into that program. And Mariah, in response to your amazing question, I want to draw the distinction between the sexual and the erotic. Okay, so the sexuality happens in your genitals. It happens in your nervous system. It happens in your physiology. But the erotic happens in your imagination. I always say if you want a sexual awakening, that happens between the legs. But the erotic awakening happens between the ears. And so for a woman to be in the mood, for a woman to be in touch with her own erotic being, with her erotic energy, it often includes taking sex off the table for a minute and really differentiating these. Now, eros means life, is life giver. So I want to ask you, what brings you alive? And this is ultimately what will make you want to have sex again, in addition to having a healthy body and healthy hormones and all of, having your body temple running optimally. Dancing brings me alive. Being with my girlfriends brings me alive. Poetry brings me alive. I once asked my partner, yeah, right. What did you say?
Music.
Music. Live music brings me alive. I'm almost never hornier than after a live music show. So now my partner knows. All right, live music. Got it. Let's do that. I once asked my partner to read poetry over my body. So he picked out some poems he liked and he just spoke it into my skin. That to me is incredibly erotic. So hook into those activities for you. Your sexual vitality is ultimately your life force. It's your life energy, your prana, your shakti, your chi. And so one great practice as well is dance what you feel. So put on a song and just let your body move improvisationally, like no one is watching, and get those currents of prana and shakti flowing through your body again. Maybe read some erotic poetry. Maybe buy yourself a bouquet of flowers and take your time smelling them, savoring them.
Yeah. All good, beautiful things. I love, I wonder, I keep thinking about the partners. For Aphrodite's circle is women only, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so do you do one-on-ones? Do you do offerings with couples? If a couple wants to come to you, can you tell us a little bit about your work with couples as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I work one-on-one with women. Also work with couples, and I love that. With the couples, look, it's up to us to train the men. It's up to us to train the partner. And it's an art and a science. It takes great skill to do this in a way that is productive. So when I work with couples, much of what I do is I train the woman on how to train her man, because he wants to please you. He wants to perform. He wants to be your hero. We simply haven't been given the proper scripts on how to do that, how to set up a container with our beloved.
Our mothers don't teach us that.
Our mothers, nobody's teaching us. This is why I do what I do. So we want to create a condition, a context within the relationship where he feels accomplished and achieved at pleasing you, and you feel full of pleasure, that your cup is full. And look, again, it may not be penetrative sex. It might be something else. He might massage your feet for 45 minutes, and that's your lovemaking.
I just have to say it could also be a she, but it sounds like it's very different when you're in a sexual relationship with the opposite gender. Because if it's same gender, the communication style and the desire seems like it's already aligned more. Whereas what you're talking about is when you're with a male partner, because we speak very different languages, the way that we're turned on is very different. What we need and desire sexually and erotically is very different. And it sounds like you're really empowering us to stand in our power and to teach our male partners.
Absolutely. And we've been socialized very differently. So men have been socialized to take you to, it's like the woman is a vessel for their pleasure. So we have to really shift that culture within our partnership. And you're right, if you're with the same-sex partner, a lot of that cultural conditioning is not in place, although we still need to educate each other about our bodies, for sure. So a lot of the couple work is around that. And that's why I also love working with women one-on-one, and this is what I offer in my group programs, is first we have to know what we want. And this is leading back to the last question, like the erotic. So allow yourself to be curious and explore, like what turns you on? A beautiful glass of wine, sunlight on your face, a really dirty, sexy hip-hop song. So get to know all these different flavors and textures of like what brings your body alive, because then you can bring it to your partner and give him or her a map on how to meet that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I could stay on forever, and I'm also aware of time.
Yes.
For our Facebook community. So for the next couple tips, for those of you that want more, link is up above for our newsletter, right, Missy? We'll have it embedded on the website. There'll be other ways for you to access.
We're going to send out a special, the second half of this, we're going to continue talking with Eva Clay, and we will send out a special edition of our newsletter with the second half of our conversation with Eva. So if you want that, the link is in the description. You can sign up for our newsletter. And if you want more info about Eva, her websites are there, the Aphrodite Circle website, and the coupon codes if you want to join. And just as a reminder, today is the last day to join the current Aphrodite Circle, but she will have another offering in the spring, and we'll bring that to you when she has it as well. So thank you for being here, and we're going to keep talking about sex and sexuality.
Yes.
And we will see you all later.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And if you also want to take a peek at our website, it's right here.